Hello and welcome to Prayer Storm. My name is James Aladrian and I'm the founder and director of Prayer Storm, and I've got with me a very good friend, and he's also a director of ministries at Prayer Storm, and we're excited about what we're going to be talking about today. The Lord has really been stirring our hearts about this word purity. We believe it's such a significant thing in the times we're living in, and there's so much pollution and there's so much evil and darkness and filth all around us, that there's a need for us to be awakened as the people of God to this life of holiness and purity. So we're going to be sharing with you some of our stories, our journey, some of the revelations God has been, stirring our hearts. And I believe it's going to be a real blessing to you. I want to start off by sharing this concept actually, and it's the fact that the message of holiness today may not be a popular message. The message of holiness today may not draw a crowd, but I believe, Rob, it would ultimately build an army, and God is building an army today, an army that is going to affect the nation, and we cannot afford for the people of God in the army of God to be living a lifestyle that is in agreement with darkness, and all the contaminations. So one of the key people we want to talk about today is Mary. Now, we all know Mary was the mother of Jesus, but I really believe Mary is a picture of purity, because she carried Jesus in a womb and she had to be a virgin. Actually, I believe Mary was a revivalist, because she gave birth to something that changed the world, and to be able to carry the seed of Jesus, she had to be pure. And I feel like that is a picture of the generation that we're living in today, where God is calling us to carry revival, to give birth to revival that will impact the nation, but we need to start from that place of purity.
And I think what's really powerful about Mary is that she's also a symbol of the church in many ways.
Wow.
In the same way that Mary, the person, needed to have a pure womb to receive Christ the first time, I really believe that God is preparing a generation of his church that are committed to purity, that have a heart, and you could say a spiritual womb that is ready to receive him in the second coming.
Yeah.
So I really believe that Mary is a symbol in both of those senses.
Yeah.
And it's such an important cry and a call for us to have in this church, to clearly understand what purity means as well, and how to live a pure life, and what the consequences of that, and even what the rewards of that are.
And the interesting thing is, if Mary wasn't a virgin, which is a picture of a purity, she would not have been able to carry what God was wanting her to carry, or what God was wanting her to give birth to. And just what you said is so important, because many people in our generation don't have a picture of what God has called them to. So they think the life of holiness is something that is done out of obligation, something that's just legalistic, that's imposed on them, or you have to do all these things. But I think when people start to catch a vision of what God has actually called them to, that vision would demand a response and lifestyle.
That's so true. I think every calling, and God has called every single person for a reason, every calling has a lifestyle attached to it. And what's really interesting, I think, is the Apostle Paul writes to his spiritual son Timothy, and he writes these words. He says, every house is filled with different vessels, different containers. Some of them are for honor and some of them are for dishonor. And he says, therefore, purify yourself that you can be a vessel for honor. And I believe, obviously, God loves every single person on this planet. God calls every single person to his son. But I believe that also his eyes are running to and fro among the earth, looking for people that will clean their hearts, clean their ambitions, clean their eyes, clean themselves out so they can be pure, clear vessels. And the reality is, purity isn't about being, I'm better than this person and I'm more spiritual and I'm A-class Christianity. Purity is like a window. If you have a window and it's dirty when you're driving your car, you cannot see out of that window, and people cannot see in the window. And the purpose of a pure heart isn't to feel better about yourselves, it's to allow Jesus to shine out of you more clearly. And the more there is of me, the more there is of what I want to do, the more there is of my stinking thinking, the less people can see Jesus through me. And so I think it's so key to recognize that with every calling, there is a cost, and purity is always one of those things.